You don't have to spend a lot of money on a tripod to get good shots. If you're looking for a budget tripod, stay tuned. This video is for you. Before we get going, I just want to say that I have not received any endorsements, money, kickbacks, or anything like that to talk about the tripods I have to my right. Now, these are my actual tripods. These are the ones that I've been using for a handful of years now, and this is what I'm going to talk about in the video today. As I do with my other videos, I have a list of notes in front of me to help keep me on point. It's relatively cold outside, so we're going to do this video inside today. Now, the game plan is this. I'm going to start off with a general overview of tripods. I'm going to talk about what these tripods are made of and some of the different features. And then I'm going to dive into a general perspective of the tripod. After that, we're going to do just a brief demo, and then I'm going to finish up with some final thoughts. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right into the general overview. Tripods are typically made of aluminum or carbon fiber. Now, carbon fiber is touted to be strong, sturdy, resistant to vibration, and also expensive. Now, I've used carbon fiber tripods over the years, and they're nice, but they're really not budget friendly. Now, aluminum tripods are considered to be sturdy as well, but they also weigh more, but they also cost less. So aside from the materials used in the tripod itself, something else to pay attention to is the construction of the tripod. So these tripods I have over to my right, this is just a small little tripod. This is the Joby DSLR. Now you can look at how this is constructed, and this is a bit unusual, but this uses these little balls right here, and they pivot, and it makes it nice to be able to wrap the legs around different things. Now, these two tripods right here are very similar in construction. If you look at this right here and you look at the legs, these have screws right here on the side. So if the leg themselves become loose or tight, and what I mean by that is being able to raise it or lower it, you can use an Allen wrench and you can tighten this down, and that makes it nice. This tripod on the end though, these are covered. These legs are covered here with plastic tabs, so you really don't have a means to easily get into this and tighten it. Now, something else to think about is that here at the bottom, how these legs come down, how they extend down, these are twist locks right here. Now, this makes it nice. It's just a subtle rotation to the left or to the right to loosen or tighten, and it makes it quick. It's convenient. This tripod on the end, this uses lever locks, and these are down here at the bottom. Now, it's probably 6 one way, half a dozen the other. I kind of prefer the twist myself, but I've used these lever locks as well and had no issues with them. So something else to think about, we talk about tripods, are the heads. Now there's two primary heads to a tripod. These two right here use ball heads. This one down here is a pan head. Now what's the difference? Well, these ball heads, just generally speaking, these are used for photography. The pan head is mainly used for video. Now that doesn't mean you can't use a ball head for video and the pan head for photography, but it's just a general classification of these heads that you have on here. So something else to think about is the locking plate. Now this locking plate up here, let me take this off and you can see if you can see this, but there's a screw right in the middle. And on this plate, I don't know how well we'll be able to see this, but the plate itself has 4 little rubber cushions on it, and it's meant to hold the camera in place so it doesn't tilt or rotate easily. Now on the back side there's a screw, and again I don't know how well we can see this, but it takes a flathead screwdriver or a coin. So if you have a coin with you in your pocket and you want to tighten your camera onto the plate, it's easy to do, but this is one means. Now this other tripod I have right here, it's very similar to the last plate, except on the back side, I don't know how well we'll be able to see this, but there's a little ring in there. And what makes this ring nice is that if you don't have a coin with you, you can simply pull that ring and you can tighten this down, and it just makes it convenient. Now this plate on the end, this one is a little bit different. Now similar to the other two, it does have a screw in the middle, but the back side is plastic. And there is another difference, and again, I don't know how well we'll be able to see this, but there's a little pin sticking up right here, and it's right where my finger's hitting. Now the reason for this pin is that some cameras on the bottom will have the main screw, that this will go into, but they also have a little hole off to the side, and the idea is that the camera will not slip off of the locking plate. And the only problem here is that it's really not a universal hole, so this is spring-loaded. So I can put this on a camera that doesn't have it, and this will simply push that pin down, and it still works out fine. So with that said, what I want to do right now is jump into a practical perspective on tripods. Don't lose sight of the primary purpose of the tripod. Now, the tripod is meant to provide a relatively stable surface to take a long exposure, but there have been many occasions when I've been out and about and caught without the tripod, but I still managed to get a long exposure. How? I just used whatever solid, stable surface was around me. For example, the top of my automobile, or the top of trash cans, or fence posts, or tree stumps, you name it, and I've probably used it at some point. Now, in order to get a better composition in those situations, I may have had to stuff a book or some leaves underneath the camera. But the tripod is nice because it gives you a lot of flexibility. But it's just something to think about, is if you're caught out and about and you don't have a tripod, you can still get that long exposure. Just be creative. That's all. Now, for many, many years, I have shot with the cheapest of tripods, and that is this one right here. This is the Velbon, what is this? The CX440. Now, it's nothing special. I bet I've had this for probably 15, 16 years, and I bought this at a big box store somewhere, and it's worked well for me over the years. I've never had any issues with it. I've never really felt the need to upgrade. I'm not really into video. Because if you're really into video, you want to look at the pan heads, and you can spend a lot of money on the heads because they can be fluid and bearings and all kinds of crazy stuff to get those really nice smooth pans. But that's really not what we're focused on with this particular video. So with this right here, I want to show you why I ended up getting rid of it. I shouldn't say get rid of it because I still use it today in some capacity, but it's the reason I upgraded to these tripods here. Now, this right here, let me show you as I crank this up, because this is how it works with the neck. You go up, and that's it. All right. So what happened is you got to kind of pull on this, maybe. There you go. And I don't know how well you can see this, but my finger's on it. So I can get this a little closer. So right there is, it's a broken neck. So how did this happen? Well, I'm not actually sure. Maybe it was just time that did it in. But when that happened, this neck became a little unstable at that point, and I thought, it's probably time to upgrade. Now, there was another reason as well that I thought would be a good idea to upgrade, and that was the locking plate on that particular tripod. Now, these other two locking plates, they have some rubber feet on them, and those rubber feet really help to keep that camera in position. In this case, this doesn't. This is more plastic right here, and even though it's got the pin, not all my camera bodies have had a receptacle for that pin. So what this means is that if I had to take a long exposure in portrait mode on this particular tripod, I would angle it this way, right here, put my camera on it, and the problem with this is that if the camera lens I had on was relatively heavy, this would start to drift down, and that's not good when you're wanting to keep this stable. So that's another point to take into consideration, is that these locking plates, they are not universal. So when you get a tripod, ensure that you save your locking plate and you don't lose it. Something else to think about is that you may want to look at the manufacturer of that tripod and see if they sell replacement locking plates before you purchase, because it'll happen somewhere along the way. You may end up losing this thing, but my advice to you is to always keep tabs on it and don't lose it. So it's something to think about. Something else to think about is this. So when it comes to these two tripods right here, and you kind of get a 2-for-1 deal with these, and what I mean by that is this. This arm right here on this tripod, and I'm going to demo this here in just a minute, and this arm right here, these will actually screw off and it becomes a monopod. Now, if you're not familiar with tripods, you might be saying, well, what's a monopod? Well, a monopod is basically one leg that comes off. Now, this will fully extend, and you might ask yourself, why would you want to use a monopod if you're new to the world of photography? Well, if your camera is heavy, or you have a zoom lens on, and that zoom lens is heavy because they can get heavy with the glass that's in there, and if you're shooting say a sporting event like a basketball game or something that's going to last an hour or two, that camera and the lens can get quite heavy. So that's the reason for the monopod. It's really not for a long exposure, it's just to offset the weight of your unit. That's something to think about. One last note here is that on the bottom of these tripods, on these two right here, I don't know how well we can see this, but this is a hook. Got my thumb on it. Okay, this one has it as well. The reason for this hook is that it's to help stabilize this tripod. So if you're out and about, you can actually hang like your camera bag on here, for example, and it'll give it a little more weight. Now, keeping in mind that when you're out shooting a long exposure, chances are you're not going to be out in a gale force wind, but if you are and you need a little more stability, that's really what this is all about. So with all that said, I want to just jump right in and we're going to do just a couple of basic demos. I'm going to start off by taking a handheld shot in shutter priority at 1 second of our subject right here. Now our subject is just a stuffed penguin with some wiry hair, and I'm going to put him on a table in front of us. And let's go ahead and take this photo and let's see what we get. As you can see, this photo has quite a bit of blur, and that's to be expected because as human beings, we really cannot hold a camera much slower than 1/60th of a second. I'm going to go ahead and grab my old trusty tripod right here, and this is nothing special, but this is a good entry-level tripod that really doesn't cost much. I'm going to post a link in the description below as to where you can get one just like it. Now keep in mind, this particular one I don't think they really sell anymore, but I know Amazon's got almost an identical version of this. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this out, and as I do, I'm going to show you the legs really quick. So these are the lever locks, and I just open it up, and the leg slides down. And you just push it back up and lock it down. Now one thing to think about with the lever locks is that when you open this up, if you leave it open or this lock breaks at all, you have a problem. And I've seen this happen. It hasn't happened on this one, but when they break off, you're not going to be able to lock the leg back down, and the tripod becomes much more limiting at that point. So this is a pan head, and with this handle right here, if I loosen this up, I can easily rotate up and down just like this. And you want to tighten it back down, you just turn it clockwise. Now if I loosen this little nut right here, it gives me the option to rotate left and right. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this down, and I can crank the neck up and down with my trusty little crank right here. Here we go. So that's about all I need right there. I don't need to go too high with this. Now the locking plate I've already taken off, and I've attached it to the camera right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down. And I am going to go ahead and grab focus. I'm going to compose. And at this point, I'm ready to take my shot. Now, in order to eliminate blur, you would want to use a remote, or if you don't have a remote, you can use the built-in timer, and I use this function all the time. So this is set up for 2 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and enable the timer on this camera. And we are all set. I'm going to go ahead and take the shot. As you can see, this shot is tack sharp, and that's to be expected. Again, it's a long exposure, but we're using a tripod to grab that image. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to talk about these other tripods relatively quick. Now this is the Joby DSLR, and I really like this because of the flexible legs. Now I'm going to use this old tripod right here to show you how we can take this Joby and we can wrap the legs all around this tripod. And the idea is that if this old tripod right here were, say, a tree limb or a fence post or whatever, it just shows the flexibility of this particular tripod. And when I'm out hiking, I use this all the time. Now the lock plate, there's a simple little button here off to the side that you push in. This comes off, and it has a little level indicator on it right here, which is kind of nice if you want to level out your image. And the way this works on the Joby is there's just one knob right here, and this controls the ball. That's it. So this actually works out very, very well. I'm going to post a link to the Joby as well in the description if you're interested in that. So now these two tripods over here, these are my more standard tripods, and these are the aluminum-based tripods. Now they're very identical, so I'm just going to talk about one of them because both of them function in the same capacity. So right here on this tripod, this is the ball head right here, and in order to control the ball head, there's two knobs. Now there's really just one that controls the head, the other one controls the pan. This big knob right here will control the head, and because it's so big, it really doesn't take much to lock it down. You simply turn it counterclockwise and the head rotates around nice and easy. And when you want to lock it down, turn it clockwise and you're done. It's on there nice and tight. And so I really like it. It works out well. This knob right here is used to loosen the locking plate. Take the locking plate out, you put it back in and lock it down. Now it's one other piece of advice is that if your lock plate is not on the camera, leave it in the tripod. It's a good tip to live by because I think it'll help prevent you from losing it. Now one other notable is right here on the top, there's a bubble level indicator right here. So this helps to level out the tripod if you do want to get a nice steady shot. So as we look at this, I had mentioned these legs right here, they come in various configurations. So I can just push this down right here. There's a little lever, and I think there are 2 or 3 different positions that you can put these legs into. So for example, if I want, say I want to get low to the ground, I can put it out like this. Now the neck right here, the way this goes up and down is just with a collar. So I'm just going to loosen it, slide it up, tighten it down. Counterclockwise to loosen, clockwise to tighten. So I can take all these legs, move them up in that same configuration, and there you go. Looks kind of funny, but it's practical at times, so it's just something to think about. I'm going to go ahead and move this back down. And I had mentioned to you about a monopod, and both of these tripods right here are capable of converting into monopods. So I'm going to show you how that's done really quick. I'm going to go ahead and lower the neck down. And right here, this handle I'm holding on to, it's got the nice cushion on it. It's got a rubber collar on it right here. Now this is an indicator that this is the leg used for the monopod. I'm just going to unscrew this, and the leg's going to come right off. Now this is nice if you need a baton as well, and you need a little bit of a tool or a weapon to kind of help keep things safe if they get a little unruly. So that comes right off, and the head, this ball head, it's replaceable, and you could take it right off. So I'm just going to grab hold of the base, and I'm going to turn it counterclockwise to get it off, and I'm just going to unscrew it. All right, so this, it's off right now. And with this right here, I'm just going to go ahead and screw this in to our monopod. So this is our one leg. And just like that, we have our monopod. Now, keeping in mind, this is not for a long exposure. This is just to offset the weight of your equipment. So the camera would sit up here, or if you have a really long extended zoom lens, it will also have a tripod mount on it. So if you got really heavy equipment, it makes it nice to have this available. But again, it's not used for long exposures. A few final thoughts. To begin with, a more expensive tripod does not necessarily mean a better tripod. I feel that many manufacturers tend to oversell some of the most simplistic features of a tripod. Keeping in mind what a tripod is all about. It's really just to stabilize the camera so you can take a long exposure. And if you don't have a tripod nearby, you can use any stable surface. I've done it before, it worked great for me, I think it'll work well for you. Now if you're out shopping around for a tripod and you're looking on Amazon, for example, please take the comments with a grain of salt, meaning that I feel that some of those manufacturers have solicited those comments to help better rank their products. Always ask some friends and family what their thoughts are on the tripods, and look for trusted reviews like this one here. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I was not sponsored by anyone, I didn't receive any money, any kickbacks or anything to do this particular video. I'm just doing this to try to help out the subscribers and people who are looking for a budget tripod. So with that said, the other thought is this: know the purpose behind that tripod in your situation. Now for me, I hike around a lot, I like going out into the woods. So when I picked up this little Joby right here, this worked out really well for me. I can wrap these legs around just about anything. Now if I have more time and I'm not really hiking around all day, I'll take one of the more traditional tripods with me. But just know that if you're carrying that tripod with you, weight might be a consideration. Now again, I didn't really talk about the carbon fiber tripods here, but it's something to think about if you're looking for a lighter weight. The other thing to ponder is this: if you're predominantly going to use that tripod for photography, you can consider a ball head. If you're going to predominantly use it for video, consider the pan. So, with that said, I hope this video helped you out, and if it did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. It's called The Real World. More often than not, I post videos about photography and technology, but you never know. I post them about things that happen in the real world. So until the next video, take care of yourself and be safe.